पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यास विशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। The second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is regarded as very comprehensive. It being quite long, running into 72 verses, this Dvitiyodhyaya supplies to us a lot of food for thought. If we can take some of the insights that Bhagavan Sri Krishna shares with us here and hold on to them, stay with them, do manana over them and do nididhyasana over them, sky is the limit for the inner transformation that can come about in us. And in the spiritual science, we always maintain that if we change inside, our world changes outside. For we are the world. As per our level of awakening, so will the world be perceived. The world looks cruel, unjust, unfair, and so on when we have our own imperfections. When we have risen above those psychological limitations for which the Vedanta gives the expression staying as pure awareness, then the world changes. The world seems to be loving, compassionate, and totally understandable. We have entered the second chapter a couple of classes ago, and we noticed how Sri Krishna begins with telling Arjuna that there is no reason whatsoever for you to grieve, for you to come under grief. In this class, which is the 13th class in this series of YouTube sessions on Bhagavad Gita, we shall enter the 13th shloka, having covered 11th and 12th, which are also by Lord Sri Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna began in the 11th verse, and in the 11th and 12th, he just emphasized that no one is dying. You are caught in your own shoka and moha. Your grief and your delusions are to be blamed. In this very world where you live, Lord Krishna seems to be saying to Arjuna, there are a few, though their number may be less, who actually do not come under this moha. What is more, on their journey to that nirmohatva, that being free from all delusion, all erroneous perception, such rare few are noticed to have certain great divine qualities. Referring to such people who become role models for us, whom we need to learn from, Sri Krishna says in the 13th verse, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara तथा देहांतर प्राप्ति धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. Or in some versions, न मुह्यते. The last part is the one to which I referred, saying this shloka talks about those rare few. Dhiraha na muhyati. I use two English words to give the meaning of dhira, for otherwise many a time the word dhira could be misunderstood as just having some kind of willpower, some kind of patience, some kind of courage, which could not be, let's say, rooted in wisdom. So we say brave and wise. These are the two words I employ. For there are many brave people in this world who may not have wisdom, then it is just an incidental exercise of will or a firm position that won't stay long. They are passing, and that particular occasion they may show great bravery, but some other time, for things which are much smaller or less grave than that particular scenario, they would lose courage. They will collapse. In this world, sometimes somebody is regarded as very brave, very courageous. Actually, we do not know the real narrative. Sometimes it is the situation that makes someone just go and do, and that may not really speak for certain inner development worth mentioning. So, situations sometimes make somebody a great leader, and situations sometimes make somebody else withdraw and even run away. I once read about some firefighter who was honored or who was felicitated for rescuing a little child right from middle of a burning building. But that next day when there was that function to honor him, after receiving all praise and receiving some gifts also from the society for saving that little child, the honest firefighter said, thank you all, but I must tell you the truth. When my fire engine came, looking at the huge building in flames, I was really frightened. I wanted to stop the fire engine, but my brakes failed and the engine went straight into the building. And then I jumped out, and then by chance I saw a little child right at the place where I jumped down. Of course, I took the child and came out. But my intention was to stop very much short of the building. Rest of it just happened. This is what we call situational bravery. So, Dhira is not just patience or bravery. Incidentally, dhairya is the abstract noun of dhira. And this word dhairya to some implies courage, to some others patience, fortitude, and so on. Without going long on it, in the Upanishads and in the Gita, the word dhira stands for someone who has certain excellent inner strength, which is because of tremendous wisdom, brave and wise. The root of this word dhira is perhaps in the Kathopanishad, where the famous mantra most of you know talks about everybody is turned outwards looking for happiness outside, and a rare soul looks inward. Paranchikhani Vetranat Swayambhu, etc. There you have the expression Kaschid Dhiraha Pratyagatmanamaikshat Avritta Chakshuhu Amritatvamichan. Kaschid Dhiraha, one rare soul, looks inward, and he looks for not just happiness, for immortality within himself or herself. Kalidasa, probably in Kumara Sambhava, his Mahakavya, gives a definition of dhira. Who is a dhira? Brave and wise, or wise and brave. Kalidasa says that person whose mind doesn't get disturbed or doesn't get agitated when things that normally agitate are around him, in the presence, in the vicinity, in the proximity of factors that can disturb the mind. If someone can stay undisturbed, that is a dhira. Vikara hetau sati vikriyante yesham na chetansi ta eva dhiraha te eva dhiraha yesham chetamsi yesham manaha na vikriyate, doesn't undergo vikara. Vikara hetau sati, when there are factors, when delicious food is around and one is a little hungry too, but if some important work is on hand, this man or this lady is focused on work and does not think about the food, being aware of it. Therefore, that is a dhira. And Sri Krishna says, dhiraha tatra na muhyati. A brave and wise person does not get confused, deluded, does not lose his sense of direction, does not lose his bearings. What is the context? The incessant changes in human life. Dehinaha asmin yatha dehe kaumaram. Every one of us passes through childhood, young age, and then yauvanam, we become youthful, then we come to middle age, then old age, and all that happens, Lord Krishna says, likewise, invariably, like there was childhood, middle age, and old age, death is bound to take place. And he doesn't call it death. I'm sorry for using that word. Sri Krishna uses the word Dehantara Prapti. The soul is going through stages and then the soul attains a new body. Once in an ashram, the lectures on this Vedanta were going on, and there was an elderly doctor, and he developed some chest pain right in the midst of a lecture. And the lecture ended, and very quickly he was driven to his home in the city. And We were all concerned. What happened to Mehtaji? And we telephoned Mehtaji. But the Vedanta discourses had such a good impact on him. Mehtaji inspired us with what he said to us. He said on phone, yes, yes, the doctors have said it's a serious condition, and they have actually announced that there will be a heart transplant. We were very concerned. We said, that is so sad. Oh, and Mehtaji consoled us, assured us, at least at that moment. Later on, he too must have gone through a lot of anxiety. But when we telephoned him, he was in high spirits. He said to us that, don't worry, Swamiji, either I will get a new heart if the operation is successful, but if something goes wrong, as Sri Krishna says, I will get a new body, Dehantara Prapti. Either way, I am going to get something new, a new heart or a new body. So, Vedanta, taken rightly, can be the source of unimaginable strength. Vedanta, taken wrongly, can make somebody, oh, all this is unreal, all this is false, there is nothing in this world, and pull a long face. Therefore, right study of Vedanta, it goes without saying, is necessary. Kaumaram, Kumara Bhava, Yauvanam, youthfulness, then Jara, old age, Tatha Dehantara Prapti. This is more like a moral instruction, like a motivational instruction with a little touch of the high self knowledge. Essentially, it is a call for staying brave and wise. Don't lose heart. Be a dhira. Shankaracharya explains it. Dehinaha means to a dehi. But who is a dehi? One who has a deha. Deha asya asti iti dehi. If somebody has wealth, dhanam, then dhanam asya asti iti dhani. Dhani is somebody who has dhana. Dehi is somebody who has a deha, the embodied soul. Yatha dehinaha or dehavataha atmanaha asmin dehe. Even as that soul, dehi is thus the soul is traveling through a particular body. There is yena prakarena kaumaram. Kaumara is an abstract noun formed from the word Kumara. Kumara Bhavaha, Kaumaram, which is no other than Balya Avastha, childhood. Yauvanam, Yunaha Bhavaha, the state of being youthful. Madhyama Avastha. Then the third one, Bhagavan Bhashyakara explains, Jara. Jara is Vayo Hanihi. All youthfulness is gone. Some people lose very fast, some people lose slowly. It is all very confusing. We meet people who look old but who are so energetic and enthusiastic. We also meet people who don't look old but they have lost the fire. There is no more fire in them. They are so slow, lacking in energy. Therefore, looks are deceptive. Sometimes we find somebody is bald but tremendously youthful, and somebody else has black hair but, as they say, no vigor. So, all this is part of this world. Jara means vayohanihi, jirna avastha. The words that Bhashyakara supplies at times are so simple, and the Sanskrit thus becomes very easy to follow. Therefore, it is not correct to say That Shankara Bhāshya is very hard. It is not hard at all places. At some places, yes, but at a lot of places, all that Adi Shankara does is he picks up a word from the Gita, provides an easier synonym. Like here, Jara means Vayohanihi, Jirnavastha. Iti etaha tisraha avastaha anyonya vilakshanaha. These are three states, each is distinct, vilakshana, viparita lakshana, from the other. Tasam pratama avastha nashe na nashaha. When the first avastha, that is ends, childhood ends. But does the soul end? Does the Atma come to an end? No way. And what is Sri Krishna talking about? He is talking about you and me. When we get older, we must repeatedly say to ourselves, remind ourselves, this body has become old. I have not become old. This is just for inner reflection. Don't go to some college students and say, only my body is old, otherwise I am like you. They anyhow laugh at you from a distance. If you say this, they will laugh more. For you, for inner reflection and being at peace, this is the truth. It is the truth. If you tell some college girls and boys that you are ever young in spirits, you are not telling a lie. Probably on occasions you are more cheerful than they are. But you must never forget that in their eyes, in the eyes of the society, you don't look young. So looks are, though deceptive, they have a place of their own. And one must be aware of both how I look and how I feel. Of course, how I feel is always more important. What does it matter if I don't look good? But if I feel on top of the world, that is what matters more. Of course, going by common sense. Pratama avastha nashe na nashaha. Dvitiya avastha upajanane na upajananam. So childhood ends and youthfulness comes. So we say youthfulness has arrived. Shall we say a new Atma has arrived? No way. Atma neither went nor came. The Atma, the pure awareness principle, Satchit Tattva, is ever the same. So these come and go. And Kim Tarhi, the word Atmanaha is the key word in the sentence. Atmanaha na nashaha, Atmanaha na upajananam, yada balyavastha nasham prapnoti, or madhyama avastha agachyati, etc. Kim tarhi, then what? Avikriyasya eva ekasya. The Atma is avikriya. Vikriya means changes, either getting better or getting worse. Both are changes. Atma is avikriya. Avikriyasya eva ekasya dvitiya tritiya avastha praptihi atmanaha drishta. So Atma becomes the basis and these changes appear upon it. Atma remains unchanged. Tatha, a word from the shloka, synonym is tadvat. In that fashion, dehat anyaha dehaha dehantaram tasya praptihi. Dehantara praptihi. Gaining another body. Therefore, we say in Hindu thought, the soul does not rest in peace. The soul rises in peace, roams in peace. You may say RIP, but you must know that in the vision of Sanatana Dharma, it is not a soul going and resting somewhere for a long time to come. Rather, it gets another body, Dehantara Prapti. Now, if your eyes are on the Avikriya Atma, the Avikriya Atma is just the substrate. If your eyes are on the Jiva, Jivatma, then in the next body, again attached and identified with the mind, the Jiva has a new set of joys and sorrows. The Avikriya Atma is above these joy and sorrow. We have touched upon how in this terminology the word Atma is used at times to mean the Jiva, the transmigrating soul, but at times or at other times the word Atma could mean that final truth which has no rebirth, no death, which is Janma Rahita, Mrityu Rahita. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna's teachings here carry the two levels together. Depending on our adhikara, how fit we are, how mature we are, we will be taking these teachings at the appropriate level. Avikriyasya eva atmanaha dehantara praptihi ityartaha. And dhiraha, dhiraha is dhiman, who has dhihi, who has spiritual intelligence. Dhihi is wisdom, dhihi is buddhi, dhihi is here intelligence. The famous Gayatri mantra touches upon dhihi, using the word in plural. Diyaha yonaha prachodayat. We meditate upon the supreme light of God, which prompts our thoughts, which prompts our intelligences. Therefore, the Sanatana Dharma had advised all its adherents to do Gayatri Japa morning and evening. Actually, in the beginning, in good old days, it was Trikala Sandhya, morning, evening, and once during the middle of the day too. Because it is through bad thoughts that we fall, it is through good thoughts that we rise. Dhiyo yonaha prachodayat. So reminding ourselves and tuning ourselves to the higher source can make a huge difference. Evam tatra evam sati na muhyati moham na apadyate. That person who is dhiman, who is truly intelligent, does not get deluded. Delusion will show. If you and I are deluded, we are unnecessarily afraid, anxious, unnecessarily crying over something that has happened, and thus we are not at peace. We lose our cheerfulness. Here and there we may be celebrating something, but very soon, because of the moha, that celebration ends in so much of grief. Joy and sorrow come together in a state of moha. That is what keeps the person in moha. There is some joy also here and there, some pleasure, there is some celebration. When one makes some profit, one is dancing in joy. Later on, when one loses, one goes to the opposite. I remember when we were children, adults, older people would say to us, uh, if we are laughing a lot, oh, several hours jumping around the house and laughing, they would say, don't laugh so much. Come on, stop it. No, do some study or something. And we would look at them. Why should we? What is wrong in laughing? Then they would say, if you laugh too much, then you will cry also later on. That was too philosophical for us. What is this law? If we laugh, they are saying we will cry later. I guess there is some truth in it. Generally, the laughter of unwise people is like that. It's not in detachment, it is That laughter makes us get more and more attached to the toys or to the objects of pleasure. In that sense, those older people, those days, were true. Now, introducing another important mantra. All these are very important, of course. Sri Shankaracharya writes, Yadyapi Atma Nimittaha Mohaha Na Sambhavati Nityaha Atma iti Vijanataha. Even though when someone knows that the soul is indestructible, the sorrow arising from the so-called death doesn't touch that person. What about, we may not die, but when we are alive, all this heat and cold, praise and insult, loss and gain, so many things happen. They, of course, cause unhappiness to us. That is the doubt here. Atma vinasha nimittaha mohaha yadyapi na sambhavati. If you know nityaha atma iti vijanataha, tatapi शीत उष्ण सुख दुःख प्राप्ति निमित्तः मोहः लौकिकः दृश्यते. It is like there are sometimes people whom you meet. They say, I'm not worried about death, but I don't want to die after a lot of suffering. Tut, I should go. We often hear or we ourselves say, when we come to know somebody died in sleep, we say, oh, enviable death. One has to die like that. No trouble to himself or maybe very little. You know, as he died out of a massive cardiac arrest, maybe at morning 3 or so, he must have suffered for a few minutes. We don't know how long, but that's about it. And no burden to others also. He was all smiles at dinner last night and said heartily, "Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow," etc. and went. He wasn't there next morning to see us. So we say, we're not worried about death, but we don't want to suffer, bedridden, trouble for ourselves, burden to others. Rama Rama, that we don't want. We often feel or we often hear. So a reference is made to that kind of Shita Ushna Sukha Dukkha Prapti Nimittaha Mohaha. Sukha Viyoga Nimitto Mohaha. Dukkha Sanyoga Nimittascha Shokaha. When an object of pleasure leaves us, we feel so lost. We feel so incomplete. Oh, he is not with us. She is not with us, and so on. There used to be cases. Now it has become less. In olden days, not too many were going abroad, and in various reputed institutions, boys and girls, when they come to final year, they apply to universities abroad and so on in this country of India. And the parents would be on one hand proud, but on the other very miserable. Especially if the child is their only child. Our only child wants to go far away. Olden days, going to Europe or America was not an ordinary affair. Now there are so many. Every house almost has. Many years ago, I heard that not just town, in a city like Bangalore, they say not even in Jayanagar so many are there. Don't say on fourth cross so many have gone. In fifth cross so many are in California. In sixth cross there are so many in New York and so on. But I'm talking of the good old days. And as Sri Shankaracharya says, Sukha Viyoga Nimittaha Moha. If the parents have just one child and that child wants to go abroad for higher studies or so, they feel so lost. Moha. They feel their life is in great jeopardy. And Dukkha Sanyoga Nimitta. And then sometimes, some other occasions, some terrible thing happens and there is sorrow. So we have talked about moha and shoka. Moha is marked by an unimaginable amount of attachment to objects of happiness. It could be living beings too. And shoka is the actual sorrow that one experiences and that clouds one's perception and strengthening moha indirectly. So I had called these two a vicious circle. If you have moha, shoka is guaranteed, and when there is shoka, it paves the way to some more moha. So somehow we have to cut the Gordian knot and rise above both shoka and moha. And the Vedanta solution is Atmanishto Bhava. Know your true nature and stay there. Don't go from a cause to effect. That is endless. If you remove one cause, there will be another deeper cause, another deeper causet. So causes and effects are on one field or on one level, and there is the Atma Tattva as their substrate. The answer given by Vedanta to our sorrow is go to the Atma. Just as in Bhakti Yoga, it is said, if you are sad about a small job and you think a big job will make you happy, that is also small compared with yet another bigger job. So, the world or the sphere of relative merit is useless. Hold God. God is of absolute merit. That is the language of bhakti. Sri Shankara writes, Iti etat Arjunasya vachanam ashankya. Ashankya means suspecting or imagining that Arjuna may have such a doubt now that I'm not worried about death, but about all the pain, all the shoka, maybe references even to injuries that happens during a war. An arrow hits somebody and instantly he dies. That is one possibility. But somebody's hands are cut, somebody is so badly wounded, groaning in pain, no medicine supplied immediately, no relief. All that is great sorrow. So is Arjuna worried about that kind of sorrow while one is alive rather than being worried about death? In the 14th shloka, we have Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya Shitoshna Sukha Dukkadaha Agama Anityaha Tan Titikshasva Bharata. O Bharata, as we know, Arjuna is addressed in various ways. Kaunteya, Arjuna, Partha, and here Bharata. The word Bharata, in a simple sense, is a descendant of Bharata. Raja Bharata was one of their ancestors, and then at this point of time, they have Kauravas and Pandavas. So all of them are Bharatas. Sometimes they are called Bharata Sattama. That also comes in the Gita. Another beautiful meaning of Bharata is Bha means light. Therefore, Surya, for example, is called Bhaskara. He brings light. Rata is Ramate iti Rataha. One who enjoys, one who revels, one who is basking in the light of spiritual wisdom. Bha here is not the physical light, which also is wonderful, but Bha is the light of spiritual wisdom. And you and I also, if we have spiritual wisdom, we can stride, we can take in our stride a whole lot of scenarios, whole lot of situations come our way. We say, all right, let's do what best is possible to approach, to meet with situations in a positive sense, positive way. You know, yesterday, a bunch of jokes from physics and chemistry came over WhatsApp. Over, you know, and one of them was nice. You know, what did the atom feel when an electron fell off? The answer was given. The atom felt very positive. As you know, electron is a negatively charged particle. So when the atom lost an electron, it did not feel depressed. It rather felt positive. Like that, there were many others. Anyway, so Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha. Bharat, I was explaining. So Bha is light and feeling up and active. How some people are able to maintain true equilibrium. I'm saying true because some are good in showing they are okay. Inside there is a lot of misery. Inside there is a lot of, or maybe it's so temporary. In a little while they break down. So how is it possible for us to stay really equal and balanced in a sustained manner? Deeper wisdom, more contemplation, more of owning the wisdom that we are studying. All right, what is Matra Sparsha? Let's get down to the Bhashya itself. Acharya Shankara takes every word. He says, Matra Sparsha is made of two words, Matra and Sparsha. The word Matra is given a single meaning. It means Indriya. So you may wonder, how can Matra mean Indriya? The word Matra more often is a measure. Even in poetry, you know, Matra is the length of time that a particular syllable, particular even letter, takes to chant. So Matra is the length of time. So it could be Lagu and Guru. Lagu is less time, and Guru means it takes more time. So those who write poetry, they are very aware of Lagu and Guru, and that is called Chanda Shastra, prosody. And if they write according to proper rules, then whoever then reads that poem, reads that shloka, feels such a rhythm, such a balance, such a calculated measure, and it will be very orderly. So, how does Matra mean Indriya? Acharya Shankara explains simple. In those places with which you are familiar, those contexts, it is time gap and so on. Here too, Ma means to measure. Matra abhihi miyante shabdadayaha iti shrotraadini indriyani. What do indriyas do? Your eyes, your ears, all of them. What do they do after all? The moment your eyes see something, the eyes sort of measure that. How big or how small, how bright or how dull, how red or how yellow, bright yellow, dark red. This is all a kind of measurement, putting things in their proper place to pigeonhole something. Oh, I looked up and I saw there was a crow, a really very dark black crow. So, in one moment, one sees and then measures. Measuring here means knowing it, coming to know. So, eyes do it, ears do it, the nose, tongue, and skin. So, indriyas, the jnanendriyas, are referred to here as matra. That is clear. Indriyani. Now comes the word sparsha. For the word sparsha, Bhashyakara gives two possible meanings. What Lord Sri Krishna himself meant, Lord Sri Krishna alone would know. would know. Maybe he meant both. So when Bhashyakaras like Adi Shankara or Madhvacharya or Ramanujacharya give multiple meanings, there are two possibilities. One is Lord Krishna might have meant all those multiple meanings. Another is Lord Krishna meant one of them, but these great saint scholars think of other possibilities too, which also fit into the scheme. Alright, Sparsha simple is contact. So Matranam Sparshaha Shabdadibhi Sanyogaha. I use the English word contact. If you were to put it in Sanskrit, it is Sanyoga. So Matra Sparshaha means Matranam Sanyogaha. When our eyes, ears, nose, etc. come in contact with what is pleasant, there is sukha. And when they come in contact with what is unpleasant, there is dukkha. So all kinds of contacts with varieties of objects give to us Shita and Ushna, Sukha and Dukkha. Now, that is one meaning. Te Sitoshna Sukha Dukkadaha. Again, Acharya picked up an expression from the shloka. Shitoshna Sukha Dukkadaha is from the shloka. What it means is Shitam, Ushnam, Sukham, Dukkhancha Prayachanti iti. The single syllable the Shitoshna Sukha Dukkha Daha. Daha is the plural of Daha. The means the giver. That is how one of the names of Lord Sri Krishna, Mukunda, is explained. One who gives Muku. Muku means moksha, mukti. Muktim dadati iti muktidaha sa eva mukundaha. So the means giver. In the expression Sitoshna Sukha Dukkha Daha. So Prayachanti. Alright. So Matra Sparsha means contacts with contacts of the senses with their sense objects. That is one meaning. Secondly, Atava Sprashyante iti Sparshaha Vishayaha. The word Sparsha in the compound Matra Sparsha can mean objects themselves. Not the contact, but the object itself. So take an example of a gulab jamun, an Indian sweet. The first meaning is senses and their contacts with things like gulab jamun. The second meaning is senses and things like gulab jamun. The meaning contact has taken a backseat. The word sparsha can directly mean the object itself. Sparshaha sprashyante iti shabdadaya. Then it becomes Matra Sparshaha is not explained as Matranam Sparshaha, they are explained as Matrascha Sparshascha, what we call Dvandva Samasa. Earlier it was Tatpurusha Samasa. Matrascha Sparshascha, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkadaha. Alright, whether it is the contacts of the senses or objects and senses, either way, what is it we are conveying here? Bhagavan Bhashyakara, I would say once more with great patience, says, Shitam kadachit sukham kadachit dukkham. Moment you say Shita, cold, does it mean always sukha? No. Sometimes if the wind is cold, if the breeze is cold, we welcome it. If it's a hot day and in the evening cold breeze is coming your way, you say, this is so pleasant. After a long hot day, cool breeze. You welcome it. Some other time, when it is anyhow chilly and the breeze also is cold, you say, on top of all this cold, now this air also is cold, and so on. In some hot places like South India, the day is hot, you turn the fan also sends towards you hot air. Then you say, oops, what to do now? So hot sometimes is welcome, sometimes is not. Cold also is sometimes such welcome thing to happen, but not. So Bhashyakara says, Sheetam kadachit sukham dadati, kadachit dukkham dadati. Tatha ushnamapi aniyata swarupam. This is explained in a single expression. These have certain nature which is not always the same. Niyata means the same. If something always gives happiness, that is niyata swabhava. Sometimes it gives happiness, sometimes it doesn't. We find the world is always like that. Relationships too. The same son or the same daughter, the same in laws or same relative, same spouse, everyone. At times they give us happiness and we want to have them with us all the time. But have them with you all the time, then you see that they become a source of difficulty also. And you are like that to them also. It's not that you blame them. You too are a source of happiness and some other time a source of botheration to others. So, this being the case, Sri Krishna justifies the word Sukha Dukkha added in it, after Shita Ushna. Otherwise, it could have been just said these senses and their contacts sometimes cause to us coolness, sometimes cause to us heat. No, no. Sukha Dukkha. Sukha Dukkhe Punaha Niyata Rupatam Na Vyabhisharataha. When you use the word cold or hot, they could be pleasant or they could be unpleasant. But not so when you use the word Sukha and Dukkha. When you say, yesterday that happiness was very uncomfortable. You can't say that. Happiness, by definition, is something that everybody wants. Unhappiness, dukkha, by definition, is something that everybody avoids. Not so with he, sukha and dukkha. Therefore, what is all this going on? So much of analysis, so much of dissection, you may say. You know. So to wind it up, Acharya Shankara says, Tabhyam prathak shitoshnayoho grahanam. So they are mentioned just to indicate that there is on one plane factors which could cause us happiness or sorrow. And happiness and sorrow themselves are certain terms which, at least on their plane, are very, very stable, of the same meaning. I said on their plane because on Atmanishta they also lose their significance. Yasmat te matra sparshadayah agamapainah. A wise person, the discussion is about wise people. A wise person again and again remembers that these things come, agama, and go, apaya. Now, those which have agama and apaya, arrival and departure. Apaya here is departure. Apaya, apagamanam. Agama apayinaha, anityaha. And a wise person thinks of their temporary nature and thus maintains certain equilibrium. All of you must have heard of a crazy king and his story. There was a crazy king and he would make all kinds of demands from his ministers, and if they would not fulfill his demands, he would sometimes even get them severely punished. The ministers were somehow putting up with him. And on one fine morning, he made the craziest demand ever. He said to all his ministers, I am giving you 24 hours. Get me something. And that something should be, if I am happy, seeing that something should make me sad. And if I am sad, seeing that same object, I should become happy. So they were really so puzzled. What is it on this earth? What is it under the sun that makes a sad man happy and a happy man sad? So they were all put inside the building and given 24 hours time. But the good news is, and their good fortune was, just before the 24 hours ended, they came upon the solution. They bring a ring that the king has to wear, and on the ring is written, even this shall pass away, or even this will pass. And he takes that ring, and basically he is intelligent. He smiles, yes, you are right. When I am very happy, let's say, having got something very pleasing, having won a victory in some battle and so on, even as I am celebrating, I look at the ring, even this will pass. And thinking of that, my joy will come down. And some other time, when there is some sorrow, one of my children dies, or some enemies capture some territory of mine, sad. But I look at this ring, which says, even this will pass, my face will light up. There is a reason for my face to light up. So, Agama Apaya Shilaha Anityaha Tan Titikshaswa. Bear with them. Stay with them with inner equilibrium. As you know, in the Vedanta Adhyayana, they talk about certain qualities. Unless we have those qualities, all our Vedanta would be not rewarding. They would be a waste. They just don't deliver the goods. Among those qualities that we are asked to develop, one is titiksha, what they call sadhana chatushtaya in all the Vedanta works. Viveka, Vairagya, and then a bunch of six qualities. That is third. Mumukshutva is four. In that third quality, bunch of six, Shamadhi Shatka, Shat is six. One of them is Titiksha. Shama, Dama, Uparama, Titiksha, Shraddha, and Samadhana. Titiksha is forbearance. In life, if we want success in our spiritual practices, we have no option than to develop titiksha. How are we to do it? But how do we get titiksha? Is it something like immunity to viruses? Are there some special potions to drink, some special exercises, special breathing exercises whereby we may have immunity? Well, that is a good analogy, but this is more psychological preparation. Sri Shankaracharya gives Teshu harsham vishadam va makarshihi ityartha. The way to develop titiksha is when good things happen, it is natural that we begin to celebrate, but we must not overdo any celebration. We must not go overboard. Everything should be done in moderation. Express happiness. If people praise you, thank them, but do not hang around there. Do not linger there, hoping some more people may praise me. Let me wait, get them also a go. This is called overdoing. Just move on. Don't get stuck with either praise, don't get stuck, of course, with sorrow. Teshu harsham vishadam cha or makarshihi. And that is how you develop titiksha. In fact, number 16 is a profound shloka with lot of philosophical implications. In this class now, we will see another simple shloka which is more of a motivational uh, verse. Shitoshnadin sahataha kim syat. If you and I develop greater strength to bear with cold and heat, not complaining too much or not getting attached to comfort, what do we have? What do we gain? That is explained. Yam hina vyathayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. This is, of course, simple. What follows the previous two shlokas? It is said when anybody develops a certain mindset, it's a matter of developing good habits. Just as there are physical habits, there are habits on the plane of emotions or plane of thoughts. There are habits everywhere. There are habits of speaking. Some people just cannot control what comes to the tip of their tongue. It has to come out. Otherwise, they feel uncomfortable. I once said to somebody as he began some story, "Sir, hold, you have told me this story 7 times." And that person said to me, "Really? Then please hear a eighth time. 7 times you have heard. Why don't you hear it an eighth time?" Why should I hear it for the eighth time? For him to take it out of his chest. He can't control. And there are others too. That's another serious problem. What is that? What needs to be said at the right time, they don't say. That's also a habit. Undue hesitation, looking left and right. I think I'll tell another day, and so on. That habit also can be very costly. It can cost us a lot, a lot. We lose opportunities. A stitch in time saves nine. A good word, the right word, as the famous or the popular author of that, what is that? 1 Minute Manager. The two authors of the 1 Minute Manager say the manager has to tell his team members 1 minute appreciation. At the right time, if you appreciate something good they have done, it goes a long way in forging a good relationship. Likewise, when they have messed up something, one should not turn one's face away. One should maybe just in a minute say to them, "Don't repeat this. This is sad that you have done this way. Be careful next time." Maybe in a polite way. Nobody is saying snub them and scold them and yell at them. That is not the point. But in 1 minute to reprimand and in 1 minute to appreciate. And there's some 3 point they give three-point formula. It's an old classic in popular management. The 1 minute manager. The 1 minute goal setting, 1 minute appreciation, and 1 minute reprimand. These are the 3 points. So we should read the shloka. Yam hina vyathayantyete purusham purusharshambha. Oh, I think I read it. Samadukka sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. Those of you who have Shankara's commentary in hands, notice that Adi Shankara also is very brief on this. Yam hi purusham samadukka sukham same dukka sukhe yasya tam samadukka sukham sukha dukka praptav harsha vishadarahitam dhiram na vyathayanti. As sukha and dukkha come to a person, if they don't throw him off balance, then that person, kalpate, becomes fit for gaining immortality. Rest of it is synonyms. Na vyathayanti, na chalayanti. I use the English expression throwing him off balance. Nitya Atma Darshana. This is a profound insight. How is it? In the present context, somebody, thanks to his dharma, his Dharma meaning Dharma Palana, and his satsangas, he is able to have a glimpse of who he truly is. Atma Darshana. Atma Darshana is a source of tremendous strength. Nitya Atma Darshana. Saha Nitya Atma Swarupa Darshana Nishtaha. Nishtaha. Well anchored. This is important. You and I study Vedanta. How do we ensure that this Vedanta helps us in daily life? As you and I meet good and bad times, we should just remember a little of the Vedanta in such ways like, ah, this is so bad, but the Vedanta I heard yesterday told me or let me know that this situational scenario is only an appearance. I am changeless. Not just the words, but try to have a glimpse of how you are the witness, you are the sakshi. Then you will become Nitya Atma Swarupa Darshana Nishtaha. Dvandva Sahisnu. Amritatvaya. And what is Amritatva? Amrita Bhava. What is Amrita Bhava? Moksha, says Bhashyakara. Mokshaya Kalpate. Becomes fit. Becomes fit. In a very simple illustration, Swami Dayananda Saraswati had said in a lecture long ago, a teacher sends some students of his. Suddenly the little ashram they had no fire. Some embers were needed. Embers. So they go to the nearby house and they want to get some embers, burning embers, wood that is burnt and red hot. And the lady over there in the house gives them embers. Okay, take them. Take this to your ashram and light up the fire in your ashram. But in that simple example, it is said that the brahmacharis, foolish fellows, went with a newspaper to carry those embers. So if they carry embers on a newspaper, in no time the newspaper gets burnt and their hands also will get burnt. You have to drop them halfway. Whereas to carry those embers, bring them to the ashram, have a proper metal vessel and hold that metal vessel on a nice cloth so that your hands don't get burnt. Likewise, if we have titiksha, if we have cultivated the ability to bear with joy and sorrow, then we will be able to receive the Vedanta teachings much better than otherwise. And then there is hope of getting immortality. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we'll see a few questions now. Someone are grateful for yet another day and yet another BG class, Bhagavad Gita class. And then Namaste, Hari Om, Hari Om. Yes. Okay, Raja has a question. At this moment, we have to remember Pujya Swami Subodhananda. Oh, yes, yes. I mentioned it in the Upanishad class other day. Swami Subodhananji was a wonderful Vedanta teacher. He passed away 3 days ago in Himachal Pradesh, Sidbadi. Yes, a lot of us knew him, and his love for Vedanta Shastra, love for Shastra Charcha was indeed amazing. So we remember him with gratitude and much respect. Yes. He was the head of the North India's Chinmaya mission. Chapter 2 to 13, 213 shloka, Ravi Prakash says, was a motivational message for great freedom fighter Veer Savarkar. Yeah, oh, I see. I didn't know that. I see. It's number 13. You are referring to what we read today. Okay, Dehinosmin Yatha Dehe. I did not know. Veer Savarkar chanted, Dehinosmin Yatha Dehe Kaumaram Yavanam Jara Tatha Dehantara Praptir Dhiras Tatra Manyate. Dhiras Tatra Muhyati. So Veer Savarkar chanted it. I see. That's interesting. That's very nice to know. Right. Balakrishnan. You are discussing about wishing to have death without suffering. Could you please explain? No, I just said that is so common because who wants to suffer? Who wants to be a burden to others? So all of us wish that our end comes whenever it comes, without much suffering to us and botheration to others. So there is not much to elaborate. It's a good wish. We may have that wish. We may pray Lord for that. Lord, there's an expression, right? You know, Anayasena maranam vina dainyena jivanam. As long as I'm alive, let me not be dependent or let me not beg anybody for favors. And when you have to die, anayasena, without much suffering, without much strain. So it can be included in our prayer. And from our side, more and more spiritual ability, spiritual maturity you know, can contribute to this. Because even when we are a botheration to others because of ill health, there are two dimensions. One is we are incapacitated, they have to look after us. Another is the psychological side. Suppose others are taking care of us. If we are psychologically mature, which can come by spiritual contemplation, spiritual practices, then we don't have false prestige, false abhiman. We don't inside us say, oh, I didn't want to take coffee from his hands. I didn't want to have help from her side. What a terrible thing. This kind of inner agitation. So without pride, without false prestige, if we are humble, then we receive help in a peaceful disposition. We thank them and we forget. Suppose they had hurt us in the past, we forget that. We live in the present because in life, at times we give and at other times we have to receive. Many people are very uncomfortable to receive something from, especially this man or that woman, and so on. This is called false prestige. So these Shama, Dama, Titiksha, etc. are not to be just memorized from a book. We need to develop them in our daily life. So one is to wish that we don't get incapacitated. If we get incapacitated, if we are bedridden, let us not have false pride about not wanting to take help from X or Y, A or B, right? So humility, true gratefulness, these have to be arrived at. While telling about four bold qualifications from Tattva Bodha, Raja says, all instructions like do's and don'ts are driven from Dharma Shastra. How long do we have to hold Dharma Shastra in the path of moksha? Well, almost towards the end. Both Dharma and moksha, these Shastras have to be carried together for till even a trace of ego is in us, the do's and don'ts have some relevance. Therefore, almost towards the end. But the extent may reduce as you become more and more virakta, more detached you are, less you depend on Dharma Shastra, but not zero. Dharma Shastra will be required till the end. Sundarajan, what does Kalpate mean? Kalpate means uh, is considered fit. See, Kalpana is to visualize, to dream, as you said. Kalpana as in dreaming. So somewhere else Kalpana can mean imagining. But the root meaning of kalp is to think of. So that to think of can become at one extreme imagination, visualizing. Another extreme, as is the case here, you think of such person as fit. So, as I often say, words have multiple meanings. Depending on the context, we have to take the word. Like in English, take a word like after. Ram went to forest and uh, after him, Bharata went to try to bring him back. So there after means time gap. But when another sentence, when you say, this cousin of mine is after money. So there the word after money means he wants money. Therefore, kalpana, dreaming, imagining is one application of the word kalp, but the other meaning, depending on the context, is becomes fit to considered fit. So they are little different meanings, but they sit together. If you go to the root of the whole verbal root, there's no contradiction. It supports these two meanings in different contexts. Uh, Looks like all these are over. Time is also up. Jai Shri Krishna. We meet again next Tuesday evening in the West, Wednesday morning in India. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.